Welcome back to Masonry Studio. I'm David Abrams, founder and CEO of Masonry. When COVID hit, there was a period of time where no tenants wanted to do deals. I took that opportunity to just absorb information. I was watching as many webinars as I possibly could. And I stumbled into this Miami Beach Facebook group and started to watch this video of Ana spitting out data. And I'm like, who is this? And a few months ago, I'm in the Real Deal Miami event, and I walk up to you, I'm like,
hi.
I need to sit down. I did say hi first.
Yeah.
I need to sit down with you. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice meeting you, and I could tell that we would have great conversation. We vibed.
You spend a lot of time educating people on information. Today, I want you to educate us on you.
Okay.
Your childhood. How did you end up on the fencing team in high school and at Columbia University?
Right, so I was born in what was Yugoslavia when I was born, dating myself there, and my family moved to New York when I was 3, so I grew up in New York City. But I went back every summer, so I still speak the language and was connected. I grew up in New York City, and then I always just loved sports. I was just a great athlete. I loved sports. And one day, my high school, I went to a small private school, and they had this like auditorium type thing, and they would have events, and they had some people come and do a fencing exhibition. This was when I was about 14, 15, right before you were really on the internet. It was like early days of internet. And I watched these people, and I'd never seen it before in real life, and I thought it was so cool. I'm like, look at this is neat. They have these like swords, they're doing this stuff. At the time, I was on the swim team, the volleyball team, the basketball team, like team sports, but I saw this, and I said, how neat. And so my high school had a team, but I think the exhibition had come from someplace else. So I went home, and I went to the yellow pages. This is like really dating myself, old school, yeah? And I looked up fencing. And it turned out that in New York City, we had the New York Fencers Club, which is one of the oldest one of the oldest fencing centers or academies in the country. And so I basically, I went to a smaller place before that for a few months, and then I went to the FC, the Fencers Club. I just showed up, and I was like, hey, I want to do this. And I just got addicted. I had a great coach who was the former Soviet and the US national team coach. And I loved it. And sports was always a refuge for me because I was not, I don't speak to my parents for basically 20 years. It was, at the time it was challenging, and sports has saved me in life so much. It's always been my refuge. It's been what clears my head, keeps me healthy, mentally, physically, all of it. It's just been a huge part of everything I do.
That's incredible.
That's what taught me how to think, is sports. It's not school.
You studied math and physics at Columbia University.
I did.
How was that experience?
So math was always easy for me. I'm not the biggest fan of school, actually. I went as little as possible. I really was like a very resistant student. I disliked the structure of it. I disliked that we're all on the same pace. We just sit on these rows, do all these things. I found it very stifling. I'm actually not a fan of school in general. I think it kind of kills kids' creativity. And if you're smart, I mean, everyone is smart. I don't mean in a judgmental way, but I think that if you're particularly creative or whatever it is, I think it stifles you by trying to put you into like a mold that doesn't work. And I think it's actually hostile to people who want to be outside of that. And it doesn't correlate to success in life. People who are very successful in life are good at cutting the noise, not caring what anyone else thinks, and doing their own thing, which is actually the opposite of what school tries to make you do. It's all like conform, go on the hamster wheel. If you do really good in this test and with this other school, you'll actually just be in a better paying hamster wheel, but it's like still the hamster wheel. So anyway, I was just good at math, and it was not, or physics, it wasn't hard for me, and so I didn't actually have to like do a lot of work to do that. And then I wanted to stay in New York because I wanted to stay with my coach. And so Columbia was the best school in New York, and like that's where I went. But looking back at it, actually, the best experiences I had in school that I'm grateful for are some of especially the physics. There's one guy, who was a special relativity professor, I remember, who was this real seminal figure of the field. He was like 86 when he taught us. He had some special title where his only class, right? He would just pop in. And when you have classes with people like that, it's like training with people who are the best in the world at their sport. These are people who sort of like transcend it. They're the leaders of whatever they're doing. And you're with people like that, that was the best part of being at Columbia, is because that makes you see what's possible. Those people are limitless. And when you're around people who are limitless, that makes you realize that we're all limitless. So that was the main gain I had from school, was exposure to people like that. But other than that, I'm not a fan of school. So I just did math because I thought it was easy for me, and I liked it. It's creative. Like writing proofs is creative. All that stuff teaches you how to think. It gives you confidence in your own reasoning. Like when you take weird theoretical stuff, you write proofs, and there's no right answer. You could have 6 geniuses in the room, and they're all going to do a different thing. And who knows? Nobody knows anything. No one knows who's right. No one knows anything. But it gives you confidence in like defining your constants, defining your space, and having a logical premise for what you're doing that you don't need validation from the outside. And that was actually what I started on when I started publishing data on Analytics Miami. When I started, it was a different market. This was like 4 or 5 years ago, pre-COVID. And segments of the market that are doing crazy good right now were really kind of imperiled back then. And I was kind of the only person putting that out because the other research reports are put up at major brokerages. So I was the only one doing that. And having that background, I never questioned that I shouldn't be saying what I was saying because to me it was so obvious. Like,
right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's the math connection there.
So your coach, it was a sense of comfort, the teammates, the sports, that was all in New York.
It was.
How was that transition going from New York then to Miami?
Right, in terms of the sports or in general? So sports,
Well,
like...
It just sounds like there was you had a real connection in New York. What drove you to come to Miami, and did any of that come with you?
No, actually that was a long time ago, that stuff. And no, I was actually in Switzerland for 4 years before I came to Miami, in Zurich mostly. And then it was just time to come back to the US, and Miami was a 6-month experiment. And here we still are. I've been here for 10 years. There's no going back. Come on. I was joking. Like I moved here before word got out and how awesome it is. It's just great here, and it's hard to go back to a different reality. It's so healthy here. It's wonderful that no, I just ended up staying.
So we'll come back to Miami, but what drove you to Switzerland?
No Swiss related reason. I've always worked for myself and done my own thing, and that was kind of just a little bit of an experiment too. And like 1 year was like half Belgrade, half Zurich. It was an experiment.
An experiment.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Very cool. And now you land in Miami.
Yep.
Tell me, how did Analytics Miami come about?
Right. So that was, it started about I keep saying 5, is it 6? Yeah, we'll say like 5 years ago or so. And that's really like, I was in Miami at that point, like 4 or 5 years. And I decided that it was pretty clear to me that I wasn't going to go anywhere. Like I really liked it here. I was going to stay. And then, actually even a few years leading up to it, I started to learn more about the city, meet people, really like just read about its history and its transformation. I was really struck by how young the city is. This is one thing I talk about a lot. Miami right now, as much as it's grown, is still like New York 100 years ago. Like we didn't have a skyline 20 years ago. When you look across the bay from Miami Beach or facing west, all those buildings, there was no skyline 20 years ago. In 1950, New York was a city. Miami, not so much. There were hotels, little buildings, not like that. And so I started learning about the city, and real estate is a huge part of the story. Obviously, as the city develops, stuff gets built. And so I started meeting people in the industry, learning more about it. And and back then I was struck by, wow, as much as happened, so much more is about to happen. Like I could feel it. This was pre-COVID, which kind of accelerated that. But I was like, this city has, and the region and the city have all these ingredients in place to be an epicenter, a capital of the 21st century. Like it's going to be, like I felt it at that time. And I was like, cool, like I wanted to be a part of this. And so I started, real estate's a big part of that story. So I started learning more about it. And then that kind of led me to do Analytics Miami.
And so what is it that you actually do?
Oh, right. So I started off just putting out like agnostic, independent research on the market. So long-term trend analysis. I mostly publish stuff in the resi markets, but I do stuff for hospitality too if I work with people for that. And I started putting that out there, and I started getting all the press. And then that was kind of like, I hate the word branding because it sounds like contrived, but it ended up being a branding tool because people reference it and it got everywhere. And then on the real estate end, I'm licensed. I broker deals, hospitality or whatever it is that comes in, but I kind of pick it. And then actually the last few years I've been assembling, and I do consulting as well with whatever, people, institutions, people who are allocating capital. And then the last few years I've been assembling these pieces for some fun stuff that's coming out soon. So yeah, it's been fun. And then Analytics Miami was Analytics was my track nickname, which was how that came about, because I ran Masters track and I was training a lot, and I was running the 400 meters. And one of my training partners called me Analytics because you only run the 400. The 400 is an awful race if you ran it. So it's like, basically you run like 96% or whatever of your best 200, and you have to hold it and keep going. It's like lactic acid, it's terrible. And so when I was running it, they're always, drop your shoulder, do this and that turn. And I always like ask all these questions, and they would be like, shut up and just run. And then they started calling me Analytics. And then I named the business Analytics.
I really need to understand, you're always posting videos of boxing, of exercise. Yeah. I've had a life of struggle with weight, with exercise. What pushes you every single day? How do you stay consistent?
For me, it's like I can't not. It has to, and it has to be competitive. That's actually what it is. Like part of sports is part of pushing yourself to be your best self every day. That's actually kind of how I approach everything. And then competitive sports is one of the most like real ways of getting that feedback of if you're improving and being your best self every day and improving. And so it's just like, it's like my happy place. Like sports saved me. And most of my best friends are people I know from sports, athletes. It's just been like my happy place. And after a while I was training track, I was at Flamingo Park track here at South Beach a lot. And I ended up befriending a lot of fighters that train here. So Fifth Street Boxing Gym is located in South Beach, and that's where Muhammad Ali trained back in the day. The original building was torn down. There's like a plaque. It's like a Walgreens or something, or CVS, whatever, on Fifth Street. But now the location is just 2 blocks west. And Coach Dino, one of my, it's like family, one of my best friends now, he runs it. And so I ended up like training with all these fighters. Like I run with them, do crazy beach workouts, track workouts, whatever it is. And that's also like my happy place. It's great. So that's been my mental salvation.
Right. And are you keeping the analytics on yourself? Or are you competing against yourself when you say that you like the competitive
Well, so I
aspect?
competed in track. Actually, I came in second at U.S. Nationals in the 400 meters in my age group that first year that I did it. And then I realized I preferred the 200. I had all these great guys I was training with who were 400 meter runners. So I just kind of like did their training. And then I was like, I really like the 200 better. And then I was going to do that. And I was in great track shape the year that COVID shut everything down. And so there was no competition. And I have an amazing track coach, Coach Jerome, who was in France's Olympic team in Sydney for the 4x1. Amazing sprinter. And he was also, I think, at one point, I think, 4th in the world in the 60 meters, like amazing. And we would spend hours just doing starts and doing all these crazy things on the track. And I couldn't do it that year. There was COVID, and then like the next year, like a minor ankle injury. And a lot of guys I train with, my friends, have black belts in jiu-jitsu. And Coach Dino loves jiu-jitsu. That's like his hobby. And he spent a year, like God bless him, that man spent a year convincing me, Ana, you must do jiu-jitsu. Like this is your sport, you must do it. And I was like, no. I need to win the 200. Like I'm gonna run the 200, I can't. And he's like, you must do this. And it was like always like a funny joke that he's trying to convince me. And then I finally did it. And when I had that minor ankle injury, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys are right, this is awesome. And then I became an addict, and I started going to Mario Sperry, who's downtown here in Miami. And we're so lucky this man is here. He's like a living legend of combat sports. He was part of the original Gracie team in Brazil. Wow. He was doing regular jiu-jitsu world champion. And then before the UFC, they had Vale Tudo, anything goes, bare knuckle MMA fighting in Japan, like 10-minute rounds, crazy stuff. And I think he won that like 7 times. Like I was in the gym, he has his trophies, and he has 4 Pride trophies. I was like, oh, Mario, you won Pride 4 times? He's like, 7, but I lost those, and I never got the other ones. Like, he's one of the best. He was just put in the Hall of Fame, ADCC grappling. He was not got like fighter of the decade for the 1990s. Wow. Amazing. And so I'm there every day. I'm like, I love this guy. Like, and what, like, I always say, a guy who has like that many professional fights and who's won that much, they're geniuses of mindset. And he'll tell you, like Mario tells me, you are what you think. And you always have to know your outcome before you do something. And anyone who's won, like, the difference between someone who's won that much and number 4 or 3, whatever, it's not physical. Everyone's an animal. Everyone trains their whole life. Everyone, whatever. The difference between that is mindset. And that's really like the jam. That's what I'm so lucky that I can learn from these guys. Because if we can apply 10% of that to our regular lives, when no one is trying to kill us in real time, like, we'd all be rock stars.
Right. So true. So you're living here a little over 10 years now, you said.
Something like that. I kept saying 9 for a while, and then I realized it was 10.
Yeah. Happy 10.
Exactly.
It's about the time I had been coming here when I was in high school. My grandparents, several of them moved down here when I was younger, and I would come to visit from time to time. The place has absolutely changed since I came. And you're here now, a decade. How has the city around you evolved, and how have you evolved in those 10 years?
Well, I think the city has grown tremendously. There's so many things that weren't here 10 years ago when I got here. Especially like we have all these Northeast businesses moving down here, restaurants, all sorts of stuff. A lot of people from the Northeast moving down too. Like I feel like the energy level has risen actually in the last 10 years. We're getting people who are coming here to do stuff, not just to like quasi-retire and hang out on the beach. That's probably the biggest difference. Yeah. The people who are coming here of late, and especially COVID accelerated that, are people who are coming here to live and do stuff, not just chill out. And I think that's the biggest perception of the city, that the biggest perception change that sort of permeated the ether is that you come here to do stuff now, not just retire.
Right. And how have you changed in that time period?
Oh, how have I changed? That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it's, how have I changed? I think I've become much more of an optimist, actually. I don't look back that much, so it's kind of like a funny question because I really seldom look back and think about what I thought 10 years ago. I'm always kind of like looking forward, so I have to like get my head looking that way. I was never like a cynic, but I think that I've become much more of an optimist, and I think that I've really worked on mindset and how I approach the world in a very conscious way, and that's come from these people whom I mentioned that I have the great luck that I can train with, who are my coaches. That's been huge. That's like the inner journey, and that I've learned. I think I've really grown a lot that way.
Surrounding yourself with good people.
You have to.
Yeah.
That's so key. Actually, one of my very good friends that I run with, Luis Palomino, Baboon. He was like 5-time MMA world champion. He's like jiu-jitsu black belt, capoeira black belt. Now he's doing BKFC bare knuckle. He just had a big fight he won a few weeks ago, and he's so good. I mean, he articulates it so well. And he told me like 2 years ago, it really stuck in my head. He told me that you can't have anyone in your corner. So like literally in your corner at the fight, but your corner is also like your people, like around you. You can't have anyone in your corner introducing negativity. And I was like, yes. And I'm ruthless about that, because once you verbalize something, you give it energy. And why are you creating that outcome? Like, the future is unknown. We don't know anything. We could cross the street, get hit by a car. You could win the lottery. Like, I don't know. You don't know. I don't know. It's all made up. The future's completely made up. So as long as we're making it up, why don't we make up a good one? With the same energy you're making up a bad one, make up a good one. It's like worrying or being a cynic. That's just negative future creation. Like, you can't do that. And so when he means your corner, it's the people who you're close to. Obviously, some stranger says something to you, who cares? It has no effect on you, right? But the people who are close to you, you can't have those people introducing negativity. And that was like, I just like took that, and I'm like ruthless about that, because you can't. It puts it in your mind as a potential outcome, and why.
Right.
So that's key. You need to be around people who amplify you.
So shifting back to the analytics side of things, how did you become this expert, this authority? You were just in not one, but 2 Real Deal print edition articles.
Yeah.
Your face.
They made a cartoon of me. Did you see?
I loved it.
I know.
It was awesome. I was reading it last Saturday. I'm like, I know, I'm going to be talking
That was
about
the
this.
best. It was an article. It was a cartoon with a volcano of cash. I'm like, this is fantastic. Yeah.
It was amazing. But teach me, how do you become known as that, as an expert, an authority, that they turn to you?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. So people have to trust you. Like, that's like point number 1. Like, they have to trust you. And like, they trust you if people aren't stupid. Reporters are very smart. And I think a lot of people like think they can play reporters, or they have some angle they're working, whatever it is. People feel that. Everyone feels that. So I think like point number 1, you have to really like, they know I'm not going to lie to them. Like, I'm just not. Like, I've put out stuff that was contrary to what other people were saying. Like, I'm not lying to them. So like, whatever they're getting from me is 100%. Like, I mean, no one's infallible. I could make a mistake. That's a separate point, right? If you catch my mistake, tell me. Like, we'll rectify it. But I'm not going to spin, and I'm not going to lie to them. And then, and I make a real point of showing trends, because you can't hide that either. So if you present stuff in like, this year versus last year, small time frames, if you cherry pick like that, you could twist stuff however which way you want.
100%.
Yeah. But if you show a whole cycle and you make a point of like really being transparent in what it is that you're looking at, and you distill it down to like the main variables, like the main points that are driving it, and make it simple and clear, then like there it is. Like, it's the truth.
Right.
And then people believe you too.
Right. It's interesting though, because I have an issue where I send a potential client a site, and they look at the demographics, and they say, no, this doesn't match our core. Why are you sending this? And it's really hard to explain that you're looking at data maybe in the wrong way. And I'm not trying to manipulate it, but you have to recognize that there's growth at crazy pace, that things change. Yep. And you don't know it until you see it, until you walk it.
Correct.
So what sets of data are you focused on?
Oh, what I publish like on my site, like for like free for everybody that's out there, is just Resi, South Florida. And I used to publicly publish hospitality, but I stopped making that public. I just do that when I work with people. But that, because that's like I started making that publicly available because I felt like people should have it, because for your average, for your typical person, their home, their purchase of their house is their biggest asset. It's really important. Yeah. And so like that's their biggest asset usually, and it's where they live. So it's double important. And so it kind of behooves us to try to bring some clarity to what's happening and communicate the market in a clear and concise, easily understood manner. I just thought it was the right thing to do, because I was kind of disheartened by some stuff I was seeing 5 years ago in the press. And so I I was like, we're looking at the same data, what? And so I started putting it out, and then it kind of just went from there.
Amazing.
And now in this case, it's really telling the numbers there are really telling the story of what's happening in the region. It's amazing. It's like the spike that's happened. It's just the influx of people and money, capital, intellectual capital, all kinds into our region has just been tremendous, and it hasn't slowed down the first 2 months of this year.
Many developers tend to talk about the same areas. They're building in the same areas. They're looking at the same areas. What area are we not looking at?
Down here?
In South Florida general, Tri-County, beyond, where is the true value that people are just missing right now based on the data?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I don't know. It's no one is not looking at something down here. Everything is pretty well observed. I don't think anything's been neglected, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of attention on this market. As far as growth, I mean, look, if you buy into the thesis that the population and the influx of people here is going to keep growing, which is why the market's so compressed. Like any single family purchase within any proximity to the urban core is a good upside play because you're getting the land value, right? Which is why they're selling things that are tear down little for the zoning rights, Miami 21 zoning, which is why they're selling things that are like tear downs for $1 million just for the zoning. But anything that you can buy that gets you land is great because the city's going to keep growing. But in general, in America, I mean, I would say that I have a thesis that, all of our urban cores, like New York City, Chicago, San Francisco, whatever, all of these cities, these densities and these modalities of living, office infrastructure, scheduling, all that stuff, all of these were post-World War II, 20th century constructs that were made before the internet, right? Like how we went, where we lived in New York City, how we went to office buildings, all that stuff. That was all like there and dense and in full action well before the internet, right? The internet came at the end of the 20th century and it was incorporated kind of piecemeal because it wasn't really fast in the beginning. It was like whatever, you dialed up, you did email. And then it became what it was, but piecemeal. So we didn't change our habits because we're creatures of habit. Then COVID came, it broke habits enough to allow for the formation of new habits. And we have, feeder jurisdictions, they'll call them, that are hostile to capital or perceived as such by people who are leaving, whatever. And so now the country is shifting into a 21st century reality. And the country always shifts, right? People forget this. Like New York was the capital of the 20th century post-World War II, post-Bretton Woods world. Before that it was London, before that it was Amsterdam. Those cities didn't blow up. It's not like a dramatic statement like New York's dead, right? London is still there, it's a big city. Amsterdam is still there, but there's a shift in focus. And the focus always shifts. This is history, nothing. People always think the present is sacrosanct. Like, no, it's not. New York was only what you think it is in the 20th century. It's gonna shift again, like it always has. And so I think now we're in that phase of shifting, and it's shifting right now by habits are being redefined around the capabilities of the internet for those who can. And that's also part of whatever divide's happening. But and Miami is emerging as one of the places that's benefiting from this. We have all the ingredients in place for that. But then also secondary cities are growing, like Boise, Idaho, all this stuff. And so I think that wherever people are dispersing to away from these 20th century epicenters, that's where the action is going to be.
But if everything shifts eventually away from it, are you concerned in any way that Miami is just shooting up too fast and it could fall?
I mean, what is too? I mean, it's not too fast. It's not being driven by debt. I don't mean, as far as if it's like a precarious foundation. I mean, the resi markets are so heavily cash at this point too. Like million plus condos in the city of Miami were 64% all cash last year. Maybe some of them refi later, I don't know, but it's not it's not liar loans, right? Yeah. It's a solid foundation. And then at the same time that we've had sales volume double and triple, quadruple, depending what the segment of the market is, we've had inventory drop 50 to 60%. It's not precarious.
Yeah, and I completely agree, by the way, because when I came from New York, right, and you look up and you see skyscrapers everywhere. You go to Wynwood right now, and yes, now there's been multiple buildings that have gone up, but for the most part, you can still walk around and see many single story.
Correct.
So I think that there are
early.
Years and years to come. Yes. It's early. And
exactly. What's happening with development, it's if you look at the old maps of New York, it was developed along the higher buildings, were developed along what they call the L line, the elevated subway lines, right? And along Central Park. And now we've had, obviously, our initial tall condos and developments were along the water, along the bay. But all of that is the same zoning. it's Miami 21 zoning, and so they can build back, and now that's going to happen just like it did in New York. You initially build along the park, Central Park. Here we built along the bay. It's like our, it's our natural feature, and then it's gonna build further back.
Can you explain Miami 21?
Oh, it's just it's the zoning that the city of Miami uses to designate how high you can build, whether you can build mixed use. They have it's actually very good. It's like very good forward-looking zoning, and they keep like updating versions of it and whatnot. And it's great. It essentially allows for mixed use development of various heights and zonings throughout the city of Miami. It's easy to understand. They also from early on, they made provisions allowing for reductions of parking requirements, all sorts of stuff. I have a friend, actually Andrew Frey, who was involved with eliminating the parking requirement for brownstone style buildings like we have in New York. Otherwise, you can't build them. It's too expensive to take out from the parking. So they did that. So the city of Miami is doing a really great job with zoning that's future looking. The city of Miami Beach is a distinct municipality, which I didn't know until I lived here. I thought it was like a borough coming from New York, but these are all distinct municipalities. The city of Miami Beach's zoning is far from that, but the city of Miami is doing a great job of having forward-looking zoning.
I know Andrew. Built a lot of good
affordable Andrew
projects.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, he built those those brownstone style buildings in Little Havana. Yeah. So he was really working on that. It was below a certain, was it 10,000 square feet, whatever it was, in lot size, like a brownstone type structure that you don't have to build parking, and that all of a sudden made it possible to build those structures.
Tell me, what is something that you struggle with on a regular basis?
I have this maybe because it's the fact that I don't speak to my parents, or that I got no support when I was younger. I'm always surprised that people like me, and I always feel like I haven't I always feel like I haven't accomplished something monumental in the last day, that I've done nothing. This is something that I still work on. I'm still genuinely surprised that people like me, or that they like what I've done. Truly. It's something that I I'll give them a talk somewhere on something, and I'm like, oh, wonder if that was good. And they're all applauding, and they come meet me, and I'm like, really? And I'm sitting there okay, don't be a weirdo, shake their hand, tell them thank you. That's actually something that I struggle with actually, is getting rid of that. That's like the imposter syndrome, you're good enough thing.
Yeah.
That's still there. Because what I was trying to say before is that I've kind of trained myself to focus on things that are doing well, because you only have so much focus bandwidth in your mind, and you should focus on things that are good in your life, because we all have a lot that's good in our lives. We're all lucky to be here, alive here, whatever. It's great. And so it behooves us all to focus on positive things. So I don't really think about what I struggle with, because it just, it's not how my mind works. But that actually is it. I still have that. I'm still surprised when people like me, or they applaud or something. I'm also really. It was funny, I went to the gym the other week, and this one, kid, this young guy, 25, 24, who trains at jiu-jitsu, and I was in something, I forgot what. It was 2 or 3 days prior to seeing that guy, and he comes up to me and he's like, hey Ana, congratulations on such and such. This is actually crazy. I literally looked at him and I thought, that was 3 days ago. Is he making fun of me? I swear to God. and I looked at him. And I said, "Oh, Ana, you're being the weirdo. He's just a nice guy." Shook his head. And so I shook his hand. I'm like, "Thank you so much." I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "Yeah, that was so cool." I'm like, "Oh yeah, he really meant it." I'm like, "Okay." And then I went up to Mario afterwards, to Mario Sperry, and I told him this, just like that. And Mario looked at me. He's like, "Yeah, he says after he would win big fights, all of Brazil was watching. He's like, famous. He said people would come up to him and congratulate him. And he told me that he would look at them and he would say, today I'm at the gym." And I'm like, yep. Because
right, done.
Today you're at the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I read Rickson and Gracie's book recently, Breathe, Life and Flow. And he said the same thing. And I told Mario that. Mario's like, well, maybe I got it from him. I'm like, I don't know, maybe you got it from you. Because they knew each other. But it's today I'm in the gym. Whatever happened yesterday, whatever. Here we are now. You have to look forward.
Right. My mentor talks about it's important to check your rear view mirror in your car, because if somebody drives into you, that's bad.
Yeah.
But if you're staring back the entire time, you're going to crash.
You can't drive looking backwards.
Yeah.
And it's a real thing. Your bandwidth of focus is not infinite. You only have so many, you really can only truly focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And then it's how do you choose to fill that focus? All we own is our time. So how do you choose to experience it?
What's a piece of advice you could give to someone that's looking to reinvent themselves?
I'm a big believer in if you believe in your future being good, then you need to believe that where you are now is good. And if where you are now is good, then everything that happened to you before to get you there was good. And I don't mean that in any bullshit sense of the word. I truly believe that everything that happened to you is good because it got you here. There's a great Aurelius quote where he says that we get to the future if we get to the future with the same thought or reason or feeling that we apply to the now. And that's it. So everything, you have to like redefine your past as good, get over it, like redefine it as good because it got you here, and then cut the noise. And I was just thinking, like, one of like the easier things I probably have from what was my challenging childhood is I don't have the noise of my parents. That's actually liberating because I don't have anyone giving me pressure on how I could be. I was able to define myself, which granted took work, but perhaps that was a silver lining. But I would tell people to cut the noise and truly don't care what anyone else thinks. That's like point one. And so much of society, like school, peers, relatives, whatever, puts all this stuff in your head and like what you need to be. And I think it actually makes people not able, it like unteaches them, that's not really the word, but like takes away their ability to even know what they like because they get so much noise coming in. So that would be my step one, is just cut the noise and just try to like reconnect with what you actually like. And don't be scared.
Yeah.
Like life, we live in America in the 21st century. It's never been easier.
Right.
Like, what's your worst case? Like, you're going to work at Starbucks, you're still going to have running water, you're going to have electricity, you're going to have a place to live. You're living 99% better than most of humanity has ever lived, like, in your worst case, provided that you're literate in America.
Yeah.
So, like, go for it. Man.
I want to do a lightning round now.
Okay.
I'm going to say a venue,
okay,
and you're going to say your favorite venue. I'll say the venue type.
Okay.
You say your favorite venue.
Okay.
Ready?
You see I'm boring, I don't go out, but let's go. All right.
Coffee.
I just go to like whatever's close to me. Sorry. But I drink coffee black. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Black coffee, strong.
Done. How many cups of coffee a day do you have?
Oh, 2 to 4.
Nice. I'm at like 5, 6, trying to bring that down.
I do green tea also, but 2 to 4 to be real. Yeah. Nice. I just like it. It's my comfort food.
Right. Comfort food.
Yeah.
Favorite dinner spot?
Oh, my home. So I love my friend Giorgio owns Santorini by Giorgio's. I love Giorgio. He's like my family. So I just love it there. I go there, it feels like home. They all know me. It's wonderful. They have great octopus. They have like dancing girls with fire and belly dancers. It's wonderful.
That's amazing.
I like to go
Where
there.
is that?
It's at the Bentley Beach Club at First and Ocean Drive. And so it's like right like at the back there. And it's like outdoor, indoor. It's wonderful. That's my happy place.
Love it. Happy place. Well, you're stealing my next
one.
Oh. Where is a quiet place for you to go think?
Oh, okay. So either two things. Either I take long walks by myself for like an hour or two around South Beach. That's like one mode. Or I actually like at Fifth Street Boxing. So there's this is funny. There's a professional sparring Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And oftentimes if I have emails that I have to write or just like clear my head and think, I like to go on sparring day and like I'll sit in the ring while they spar and like write emails. It's one of those two. It's like my other
You're
happy
already
place.
cutting out the noise, so it's
my other
irrelevant.
happy place. It's
That's
like good
amazing.
energy. It's good energy.
That's
and that
cool.
kind of like clears my head.
Right. Where's a place that you've heard of but haven't visited?
Tokyo. I really want to go to Tokyo. That's been on my list for a while. Tokyo and Brazil.
Nice.
Those are my first two right now.
Can you share advice on how to approach obstacles?
Yeah, so the first thing that one should do is define it as a positive in your head. This is one of those things that I've learned is that you have to like in real time define things as positives, and then in your head it becomes not so bad or not so big. If something in your head is like very high and hard, you can't do it. And so you have to have faith in your outcome, define it as a positive, and even like don't be in a rush to act until you know your outcome. Like don't do things until you know the outcome. Know the outcome in your mind before it happens. It's like what Sensei Mario always tells me, you are what you think and you know it. Like you know the outcome. I've talked to him about all his wins. Like he knew the outcome before it happens. You have to know it in your mind. And within that context, define the obstacle as a positive and put it in perspective that nothing's that bad. We don't really know anything. Like we think we're on this planet spinning, you know what I mean? Like put it in some greater perspective, relax, believe it's gonna be good and go with that premise. Like always go with the premise that you're getting your desired outcome. And then like your force of reality, like we all create our own realities, right? So then like your force of reality is stronger than whatever you had perceived as your obstacle.
I'll tell you something that helped me get through years of struggle just growing up. You don't know when, but eventually you can look back at anything and laugh about it.
Yeah.
And just say, why the heck was I upset about that? Why did I freak out about that exam? Why did I?
Who cares now?
Who cares?
Exactly. No, 1,000%. Was I think Andrew Carnegie had some quote where he said that, like, what is it, like 99 or 97 we worry about never happens, and the big things that happen in your life that end up being pivot points are nothing you could have predicted anyway.
Right.
So just like chill out, and like I mean, really, just like I think it's about just being your best self every day, whatever that means to you, and having faith in your outcome. And have fun.
Have fun.
Have fun, be happy. Oh, that's one funny thing we're doing right now. Happy in Miami. One of my very good friends, Elena, and I, we were talking a lot about, she's from Russia originally, and we talked a lot about how wonderful it is here, right, for so many reasons. And then in the beginning, and sort of tying into like all the data that I've been putting out, showing this influx of money and capital into the region and everything else, and going back to what we were saying earlier, that it's not just money. It's important to recognize that it's people moving here to do stuff too. They're doing inspiring, cool things here for various reasons. They're all coming, many of them are coming here now. And we made this joke, we're like, oh, we're all happy in Miami. And then I went online and I went and registered.com and I said, oh, happyinmiami.com. So I just bought it for like $10, regular domain. And we're doing this fun thing. We're gonna have like little Happy in Miami shirts and hats. And we're gonna be highlighting little like people, little interviews of stuff of sports people, business people, whatever it is, people who are doing great stuff and kind of like spreading a positive message. Because the news bipartisanly spreads fear and negativity. And you spread fear throughout a population, all you do is constrict people's minds. It's terrible. It's the opposite of inspiration. So we're going to be spreading some inspiration out into the ether with Happy in Miami.
I love it.
I think it's going to be fun.
Use this space. Set up shop.
Yeah. I know, right?
Out the swag.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
No, it's what it is. It's like
Yeah.
you change your mind, you change your reality, you change your state.
Yeah.
And I forget sometimes that, you know, I've basically never been part of the program. Like I've never watched TV. I left my parents' house when I was 17. Well, now I have a my place came furnished, so like I have 3 TVs, and I was like, what is this? Like I'm walking around, I'm like, I was like, TVs have a Netflix button now. Like I'm from the Stone Age. I'm like, grandma, I haven't had a TV in 20 years. And like I don't turn them on, like ever. I even put something in front of one, and like one I'll use for Netflix like once a month, like when I'm super, super tired, and like literally that's it. And so I forget that most people consume media, that type of media. And it's like you go to somebody's house, you're in the elevator, you're in something, and you see this stuff like, Jesus, like wow, stop. If you listen to that all day, what's gonna happen to you? It's terrible. And it's like that's why people get cynical. They lose sight of like the upward trajectory of human evolution, right? So it's a big world. If you want to find negative stuff to put in the news, you could do it all day. Like there's people dying every single day. You could put it up there. But if you want to find good stuff and inspiring stuff, people overcoming adversity, doing great things, you could fill your news with that too. Just no one chooses to. And then people lose sight. Like I was saying, my grandma turns 99 in May. She was born in Macedonia. She's in Belgrade in Serbia. And she was born in 1923. And then she was the youngest of 6 kids. So her mother had her like 40 or 41. Her mother was born in the 1880s, something like that. And then her husband like died when my grandma was like 3 or 4. So this woman had 6 kids, lived through 2 world wars, like fresh out of Ottoman occupation, no running water, no anything. Like really? Like would any of us go back in time?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, no, like this is the best of times. It doesn't mean it's perfect,
right.
But like find me a time and a place in the globe you'd rather be.
Right.
Like I can't, right? Yeah. So, and people like, they lose focus of that because the news is so negative that most people don't know history. They don't really read it. They don't think about it. And so they really start to think that times are bad. But it couldn't be further from the truth. Like times are great. Like that woman would be like, think we're crazy for complaining.
Yeah.
Like, so perspective and gratitude.
Yeah. I have one suggestion for your TVs. Mm-hmm. I have a TV in my office that just has my logo on it. You should put your smiley faces on
we're
it.
going to. I have one on my phone. We made a little screensaver. I later made one. It's so cool. Yeah, so we're going to do that. So that's coming. And then I'm also like similarly tied into that. I'm putting out, it's gonna come out, it's part of the pieces I've been putting together, something called Ask Ana. So I've had the great luck of meeting all sorts of good business people, sports people through all the work that I've been putting out in the last few years. So we're gonna do something like that, where we're gonna announce the guests like a week or 2 in advance, have people send in questions like Ask Ana, and do fun like market world talks. So it'll be at Analytics Miami too.
That's amazing.
That'll be fun. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be a fun year.
Nice.
Because there's all sorts of good stuff happening here. Like it really
Totally.
is. All these great people are moving here. All these big tech guys moving here with like huge Twitter followings who are taking pictures. They're like ambassadors. Every day they're saying how great it is here. And that's part of our positive momentum cycle. Like while our feeder jurisdictions have negative momentum cycles, we have a positive one. And like the wave has just begun.
Oh, for sure. We've done a few deals already with crypto companies. We've done deals with cars that can fly.
Yeah. Miami had no tech 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like zero.
Yeah. It's here to stay.
Yeah.
And it just keeps growing.
And they're going to keep coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So we're in the early days of the next capital.
Let the good times roll.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit more about the analytics. Where are you getting this data? How are you storing it? What is your process? I'm trying for myself to do it, but...
Cool, yeah. So the Reddit stuff that I publish, it's all 99% of it is resale data. And so I'll download, I customize like my output fields. Like I'll download raw data from the MLS as far back as I can get it, historic and all of it. And then I basically like dump it into spreadsheets, and I have them all like whatever, algoed out, where it pulls it, parses, for things that I like. And then I just chart stuff long term. And then when you look at data, it's not constructive. It's easy to confuse people, and people will do that out of ego. They'll present things in a complex manner using like big words and math terms, whatever it is, right? Because then people think you're smart. They don't ask questions. They're confused. Yeah. It's much more effective and actually harder to take lots of stuff and like make it simple and direct and understandable. So when you look at data sets, you want to try to identify what the main drivers are. Like is something at a boundary condition? Is it a max? Is it at a min? Is something going asymptotic? Like what are the boundaries? Are we approaching them? Where's momentum going? All that stuff. You want to try to find like what's really critical, what's pushing the market. You don't want to just like dump everything, because that's useless. So you want to spot the trends, spot what's driving them, and spot pressure points, because you'll see them in the data. And you also like things that are correlated. You want to chart them together, see like, are they going like, supply going like this, well demand is like this, that means something. So you kind of just look at it and pick the patterns. That's what I do. So I take lots of raw data, I chart it, I look at it and pick the patterns, and then I pick out what's most powerful.
Can you take that same algorithm to a different city, say New York, and just pull that same raw data?
Yeah. I mean, the algorithm I chart it all and just look at it and I find the patterns.
But today you're focused South Florida.
Yep. I mean, I speak, for Analytics Miami, the data that's published there is South Florida. I have done stuff for other sub-markets and areas when people ask me. But yeah, Analytics Miami is just that. And then I'll speak on broader topics, but yeah, that's just the resi down here. And it's really fascinating. Look, in 2021, twice as many dollars were spent in South Florida tri-county real estate than in 2019, which was the most recent pre-COVID year. And the million plus growth like tripled in some areas, while inventory dropped.
Right. And to your point earlier, it was cash.
Heavy cash.
And a lot of those are single story, which can always go up.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And also to point out, our market, especially our luxury condo market here in Miami, has been, of recent history driven by the Latin American buyer. They were the ones coming here buying condos. And this surge, I mean, they didn't completely stop coming, but they were restricted because of COVID. And this surge that we saw in the luxury condo market especially is domestic. And so the Latin American buyer didn't decide they didn't like Miami, they just couldn't really come as much, but they're gonna come again. And so they're gonna be on top of that now new domestic demand. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this. Your authenticity, your energy, your positivity, it spreads. Keep sending that love, the good vibes only. Keep bringing everybody that's not in Miami yet to Miami. And thank you so much for sharing everything you shared today.
Oh, thank you so much for the great conversation. I knew it would be great. When we met at the Real Deal event a few months ago and you asked me about speaking, I said, how awesome. I knew it would be a great conversation. I really appreciate it. This thing, we're all super lucky to be here. This is the beginning of Miami's ascent.